Good evening and welcome to the Coeur d'Alene City Council meeting for April 4th, 2023. We'll call this meeting to order, and the clerk will note that all council people are present except Councilman Gookin, who is excused tonight. Our invocation tonight will be provided by Reverend Therese Fendel with the Community of the Holy Spirit. Reverend, if you want to come forward, we'll welcome you and be happy to hear your gracious words.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to provide this invocation. Let us pray. Loving God, we gather in gratitude this evening for the many blessings you have bestowed upon us, the forests, the waters, the industries, and the diversity of people who make North Idaho their home. We ask that you make us mindful stewards of the precious resources we enjoy and use. We ask your blessing on the mayor, the women and men who serve on this council, and all those who serve and protect this city and its inhabitants. May the people of Coeur d'Alene support this council as they continue to build a community that is safe and welcoming for all. May all who participate in this meeting speak with consideration, respect, and kindness. And may the peace and wisdom of your Holy Spirit guide the dialogue and decisions made here tonight. We ask this in the name of Jesus, your Son. Amen.
Amen. Councilman Wood, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Yes, sir. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any amendments to the agenda? Hearing none, we have several proclamations tonight. The first one is a proclamation for the week of the young child. Whereas the Idaho Association for the Education of Young Children are celebrating the Week of Young Child April 1st to April 7th, and whereas we are working to promote and inspire high-quality early childhood experiences for our state's youngest citizens that can provide a foundation of learning and success for children in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and whereas teachers and others who work with or on behalf of young children, birth through 8, who make a difference in the lives of children, deserve thanks and recognition. Now, therefore, I, James Hammond, Mayor of the City of Coeur d'Alene, do hereby proclaim the week of April 1st through April 7th as the Week of the Young Child. Do I have someone to present this to tonight? Come on up, please. Tanya Sears and Denise.
Yes, Tanya couldn't make it.
Okay.
So it's Denise.
Come on over. I want to present this to you, and I want to recognize that those first years of life, those what we call formative years, are essential years to how children will grow up and what kind of life they will lead. So we very much appreciate that people recognize and are willing to put the time in to helping children get off to a positive start. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, thank you.
If only that happened to me, maybe I'd be a better guy.
You're a pretty good egg.
The second proclamation is the International Dark Sky Week. And because we have these, I'm kind of paraphrasing some of this. Whereas the aesthetic beauty and wonder of a natural night sky is a public resource and a shared heritage of all humankind, and the experience of standing beneath a starry night sky inspires feelings of wonder and awe and encourages a growing interest in science and nature, especially among young children and out-of-state visitors within the local communities. And whereas 80% of the world's population, including many in Coeur d'Alene, live under a dome of light pollution, excessive artificial lighting at night that disrupts natural darkness, and may never experience the visual wonder or ecological and health benefits of living under a dark sky. Whereas the International Dark Sky Association, headquartered in Tucson, Arizona, has created International Dark Sky Week to raise awareness of light pollution. Now, therefore, I, James Hammond, Mayor of the City of Coeur d'Alene, do hereby proclaim the week of April 15th through 22nd as International Dark Sky Week. And James Fillmore?
Okay.
I'd like to present this proclamation to you. Thank you very much. And I want to recognize, it reminded me, for some of us who are old enough, of sleeping outside in the backyard in a sleeping bag and watching the stars and hoping to see a shooting star. And it's something we should still encourage our children and grandchildren to enjoy. So thank you very much for that recognition. You bet.
Mayor and council members, thank you for this proclamation to help raise awareness of the splendor of the night sky and the risks caused by excessive lighting. The excitement generated from the night sky has been in the news lately. On February 28th, the press ran a front page story showing the beauty of recent Northern Lights display taken by a photograph in nearby Hayden. Currently, you don't have to go too far out of town to be able to get these wonderful views. But as our population grows and lighting grows, we might have to travel further and further from town to enjoy them. A recent study published in the journal Science reports that the average night sky brightness has grown 7 to 10% per year, every year, for the last 12 years. If we care about this topic, we have to increase our efforts. A slight digression. As part of the Coeur d'Alene 2030 project, area residents provided feedback that one of the major desires was to have more access to the river and the lake. The city went on to purchase the old Atlas Mill site and turned it into the Atlas Waterfront Park. Now more people have permanent access to the river and the lake. We need to start thinking of the night sky also as a public resource. The good news is the city doesn't have to purchase any property to provide access to this resource. It's already in everyone's backyard and in the public parks. But what the city does need to do is help protect this resource. This is not a new idea. Cities and counties throughout the country, even here in Idaho, already have strong lighting ordinances. Not just ordinances about commercial property, but including residential property. These communities realize that these ordinances help protect private property rights by limiting light trespass. Safety concerns is the immediate response when you bring up lighting restrictions, but glare and deep shadows caused by poor lighting design does not improve safety. I don't have time to discuss it here. It's not just the aesthetics of the night sky, but it's human health and wildlife sustainability that are at risk by excessive lighting. I would ask that the council, or even one person on the council, be willing to work with me to start the process of turning this proclamation into more than a symbolic gesture. Again, for myself and the entire dark sky community, thank you for this proclamation.
Yep. This is also Fair Housing Month.
Well, could I mention that if you do look for a volunteer to work with him, I would. I remember in my day we would drive up to the top of, Canfield Mountain. So I think that is a very worthwhile issue.
Sold.
And what's a pay?
Whereas on April 11, 1968, President Lyndon Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act of 1968. This act clarified the prohibition of discrimination regarding the sale, rental, and financing of housing based on race, religion, national origin, sex, and as later amended, disability and family status. And whereas it has been 55 years since the enactment of the 1968 Act, and the community of Coeur d'Alene continues to work together to uphold the fair housing law and the principle of equal opportunity on which it is based. And whereas the City of Coeur d'Alene supports the ongoing efforts of many organizations, housing and service providers through continued education and outreach to affirmatively further fair housing. Now, therefore, I, James Hammond, Mayor of the City of Coeur d'Alene, do hereby proclaim April 2023 as Fair Housing Month. And Jared McFarland. I present this to you, but I also want to say that nowadays, more than ever, fair housing is an issue for us. It's an issue for people that are looking for housing these days, whether it's rentals or to buy. But also, it's important for all of us in the community as it damages our economy if we can't afford to have people living here and working here. So thank you for that recognition. I appreciate it. We do have a couple of presentations tonight. The first one is on Connect Kootenai, and it's presented by Greta Giesel. Greta, come on up.
Hi. Good evening, council members and Mayor Hammond. Thank you so much for having me here today. Let me turn this on. F5. There we go. Oops. Oops. Back. Okay.
Help.
Help. Jeff, what do I need to press? Is it okay? I think so. All right. Good evening. Thank you so much again for having me today. I'm really grateful to be speaking to you. I am also grateful because my family has joined me, and then I also have some board members in the audience. Chuck Gady and James Casper, Mayor Meyer, and Sarah McCracken have all joined me tonight. I don't know if I've missed anyone. Okay. So I'm a local girl. I'm from Idaho. I grew up in Coeur d'Alene. I was born in Moscow. I've been here since I was 3. I grew up near Lakes Middle School. I went to Bryan. I went to Lakes. I went to Coeur d'Alene High School, University of Idaho. So Idaho is in my heart and soul. And when I leave, and I've left often and always come back home, Idaho becomes my identity. Where are you from? I'm from Idaho. And they're like, wow, it sounds so exotic, because it's actually one of the most beautiful places on earth. So last August, after teaching for 3 years, I was honored to be given the position, or given an opportunity to take the position as executive director for Connect Kootenai. And we are an organization that wants to create a better tomorrow so that everyone has the opportunity to belong, thrive, and make a positive impact. This is just a list of the board officers and board members and our legal counsel, but these are all in your packets that you've been given. So I want you to consider everything that's up on the screen as sort of the condiment to my speech, because you already have it, sort of like I already took your notes, right? So I also wanted to say thank you to Hillary Patterson. She's part of the city, and she is not here today, but she is also a board member. So since I've come aboard, we have strategically planned for what we want to do in the future. We have created a new logo, as you see up there, Connect Kootenai, because it's about the humans in Kootenai County. We have always said, as the organization of CDA 2030, it's Coeur d'Alene in the greater Coeur d'Alene area, but it's about the citizens of Kootenai, because everything that happens here affects everyone in Kootenai County. And As we have rebranded, we've also been entrusted with taking on the Regional Housing Growth Issues Partnership that esteemed Councilmember Kiki Miller has taken on and created over the last couple of years. So Connect Kootenai, we take a community vision and then break it down to goals, objectives, and actions. And we're a convener, a neutral convener in the community. We cultivate connection between businesses, organizations, citizens to accomplish actions in our community that are reflective of the voices of the people who spoke during our community organization meetings. So in our implementation plan, and from the very beginning, we had 6 different focus areas. Connect Kootenai on community and identity, education and learning, environment and recreation, growth and development, health and safety, and jobs and economy. And as we have grown and taken on the Regional Housing Growth Issues Partnership, housing is our primary goal. And what a great time to be speaking to you today based on fair housing, because it really affects everyone. And without housing, all of the rest of the stuff in our implementation suffers. So we have 19 goals, 46 objectives, and 134 actions. And we've been part of the community and done many things, such as we've done a performing arts center market and feasibility study. So we did a lot of community outreach and involvement, and we took the pulse of the community and what they wanted, and we heard the voices, and this is just one of the things that they wanted. And then the East Sherman Revitalization District Plan. So we were part of the community, walking out on the streets, meeting with people, and hearing what they wanted to see on East Sherman. We did something called Keep the Beat. And this is where we brought together people to learn CPR. And at the beginning of our organized effort for this, we had 59% of the people that we surveyed would jump out in case of an emergency. And then after we did that, we had a 38% increase for 97% of those people wanting to help in an emergency. We also helped with the vision of the health corridor as far as, again, talking to community and bringing people together. We had 3,000 citizens who participated in the visioning process for the health corridor, and we brought them together and listened to what they had to say about what they would like to see for our city of Coeur d'Alene. And then, of course, one of the largest assets in our community is the lake, and that's why people come here. It's one of the most beautiful places on the planet. Said by thousands and thousands of people as we move forward. So we work with the Our Gem Collaborative, and last year we worked with them and had a community program over at the Hagedon Event Center with the National Academy of Sciences on lake health, and heard all kinds of very interesting facts about the lake and its health. So the City of Coeur d'Alene's comprehensive plan was put together in partnership with what's formerly known as CDA 2030, our Connect Kootenai structure now. And so for 2 years, we worked hand in hand to create what is a template that was a plan that was taken from the template of what we had created in the past, and we put it together with the city and worked side by side to create the actions that are in your implementation plan. In fact, we are part of 56 different actions in the city's comprehensive plan, and there are 6 of those specifically related to housing. So what we have done since I've come on as well is we have taken the power of synergy. So what we're doing is we have monthly housing and growth meetings. So we call the RHGIP that we've taken on Connect Kootenai on Housing and Growth. Those meetings were already in place before I came on, and we've taken those over, and they meet twice a month, every second and fourth Monday from 3 to 4. And we have 24 meetings a year, so we engage the community, and we talk about the connection, the passion, and the impact that we can have. The same thing is done for the other 6 focus areas. We have quarterly meetings, so each of the focus areas has a meeting each quarter. And those meetings, so we have 36 different meetings a year, and those are also on the second and fourth Mondays between 12 and 1 p.m. And those are structured so that there is a liaison on the board that works with each focus area. That focus area then has a chair in the community and other community members who are passionate, who want to work on moving actions forward. So like I said, we spent 27 months together prior to my arrival working on the Envision Coeur d'Alene plan, and it was an award-winning plan by the American Planning Association, so congratulations on that again. And so what we would like to do as an organization is hear from you on what actions the city would like us to work on moving forward and how we can partner, again, moving forward to move those actions into fruition. So we provide value to the city of Coeur d'Alene by helping move those actions forward. We want to achieve those goals and objectives. We will be hosting a community event the first Thursday and Friday in June to bring the community together to talk about what we've been doing, who we are, and how we're moving forward. We will also hold builder and developer forums to talk to builders and developers about how can we create local worker housing, because that's what we really want to do, is maintain and provide those local worker housing structures to make sure that the people who work here can live here as well. We engage in inclusivity as far as our partner meetings and creating a place where people can come and talk about what we're doing. We also have a planning and zoning workshop, and we will continue to assess and reassess what is done, what should be done, and what new things we might need to bring to the table as we move forward. So this is we were entrusted with the Regional Housing Growth Issues Partnership, and like I said, Council Member Kiki Miller started this over 2 years ago, and she has done such an amazing, phenomenal job bringing our housing crisis to light so that there are solutions that have been created, multiple of them, and I'll get to those in a moment. And it was spearheaded by her, and Kiki's passion is inspiring and admirable, and I intend to carry out that same passion moving forward and make sure that we do continue to provide solutions as a group and provide solutions that we can create for housing. This is the structure of the Connect Kootenai on Housing and Growth, born from RHDIP. There's a working group, and that is made up of the City of Hayden, Post Falls, Rathdrum, Athol, the Idaho Finance Association, Panhandle Area Housing Alliance, the United Way, Welsh Comer, and others. And then we have advisory group, which is about 45 different members from the community that come together and advise on what they think we should do moving forward. There are reporting partners such as Home Share Kootenai County, which came out of the RHGIP process, where we can match people with places to live. Kootenai County Open Space Committee, Regional Realtors Association, and Habitat for Humanity, all are some reporting partners. And then there are volunteer subcommittees, and then, of course, the community outreach person. So in Kootenai County, our area household median income is $65,000, as you're aware. And if someone were to purchase a $552,000 home in Kootenai County, they'd be spending 51% of their household income on their property. If they were renting in Kootenai County, making that same amount of money, they'd spend 31%, which is the recommended amount of money people should pay toward a mortgage or a rent payment. And then we talk about area median income often, and area median income is a percentage of that 65,000. And so as you see, the 2, 3, and 4 represent 2, 3, and 4 person families. So when you combine their incomes, those are the wages that people can make. And so you'll see that there's teachers and firefighters, police officers and nurses, all of the people, the local workers that we want to provide housing for, they fall into these income categories. Connect Kootenai did a rental survey, and we will continue to repeat that same survey this year in May. And out of about 1,500 responses, 94% of those people had an increase in their rent in that year. An average of $376, which, as you are aware, is obviously quite substantial. And then and the payments that they're making as regular renters who may not be making that $65,000, Most of those people that we surveyed are paying 51% of their rent, or of their income toward rent. This is the solutions toolkit that is on the rhgip.com website. That website has a drop-down that has the solutions and the toolkit items. These are all vetted items that have come out of the RHGIP group that is now under Connect Kootenai. And all of these solutions that have been presented will continue to be developed, grown, vetted, and we will continue to add to these. We need to know what we can and what we can't do. So we're here to protect and preserve, I put those words together for you, protect and preserve local worker housing. As Connect Kootenai, we want to see the citizens, like I said, in Kootenai County, and so this is just a representation of all of our cities in the county to make sure that those local workers have protected homes. We want to align, streamline, create solutions in between other municipalities so that we can move things forward smoothly. Slide 24 was deleted in your on the slideshow, but it's in your packet. It's just a list of some more advisory partners, but I just wanted to let you know. And then this is the partners that we've had, and nonprofits rely on our community support and partners, and we cease to exist without support from our partners, and we would like to thank the City of Coeur d'Alene for their continued support. So I look forward to coming back to you often to make sure that you have a regular update of what Connect Kootenai is doing in our community and in the county. Together, we can keep and create housing for our families, their kids who want to ride bikes down the street, hike around Tubbs Hill, jump into the lake, and love the home that that their parents are able to purchase so that they can grow up in a home that's solid and stable. Together, we can create a better tomorrow for the citizens of Coeur d'Alene and Kootenai County, where everyone can belong, thrive, and create a positive impact. Thank you.
Thank you, Greta. Other questions? Go
Sure,
ahead.
Kiki, you go.
I just have one, because, you've done a great job of, listening, and I really appreciate this presentation. That was very concise. In the presentation, you said, we want to hear from regional council members on what actions and what they want us to do. What's the vehicle that you're presenting that you're going to do that?
Vehicle to move things.
Do you want all council members to individually email you on ideas? Do you have a connectivity piece with your community leaders here on how you want to hear from us?
Yes. I would greatly appreciate any feedback, any information, anything that you'd like to share, and any involvement that you'd like to have moving forward with Connect Kootenai. Feel free to email me, and we'll set up another email or another meeting with you, and we can move that forward. We also have meetings for specific Kootenai County on housing and growth meetings every Monday from 3 to 4 p.m. So not every Monday. The second and fourth Mondays from 3 to 4 p.m. So if you would like to join those meetings, you are more than welcome to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dan?
You mentioned the study on the Performing Arts Center, and, well, we talked about Midtown Ignite. I think we had a piece in helping to make that go, and that's been a, kind of a dream for a long time. Is there anything happening with that, or was it just another study?
Councilmember, it was definitely a study, and I think what came out of that was that it didn't pencil yet. So I always like to add a yet on everything, because if it wasn't done, it doesn't mean it can't be in the future. So I know that there are lots of citizens who would love to see a performing arts center in our community, as would I. So
Great, thanks.
Christie?
Thank you. I can answer part of that. That whole concept came to the North Idaho College Board of Trustees, and we felt it was outside the scope of our mission to build a performing arts center. Not that the community wouldn't benefit from one, it just didn't fit the college. Greta, I had a opportunity today, I met with a fireman, and listening to his story and employees that he works with, one of the new hires is paying $1,800 a month for a one-bedroom apartment. And I'm thinking, wow, we don't pay as much as we'd like to. We'd like to, but, you know, there's a limit. So that's incredible, that rent is that high, and I'm not sure if your organization, first of all, I'm thrilled that you're going this direction, and I appreciate all the work that Kiki did to try to help with that transition, and I think she's probably going to stick around and help some more. So I'm wondering about rent, if that's part of the discussion, rather than just being able to purchase a home, because not everyone's going to be able to purchase one. So I'll let you answer that one first. And I have
Great question. Yes, so the information that I recently heard is that rents have declined a little bit, and Connect Kootenai is going to do another rental survey. It's very similar to the one that I just presented with all of the numbers, again in May this year, and then I'll have a better idea of where things are landing and as far as where rents are. And I know that it depends on where you are and how much they are, and it's extraordinarily expensive. I certainly couldn't afford to rent at that, so I understand. So I don't know if that answered your question, but we are looking at rental prices, and from my understanding, from what I heard from a presentation last month, is that they have declined a little bit, so they're correcting a bit.
Okay. The second thing I wanted to bring up, going back to my time at the college, I was in discussion quite a bit with leadership there and trying to get discussion going with the school district, the city, the county. The college has property, the city has property, and I wondered about partnership where we could actually build our own workforce housing for teachers, cops, firefighters, nurses. And I imagine Kiki's done a ton of work on that, but I would love to see that explored with the actual, with the community leaders that would make those decisions. What's it going to take for all of us to come together, explore what we can afford, what kind of financing we could do together, where we could build something? So I don't know, Kiki can probably speak to some of that, whether that's in the works, but I think it's past time that we build our own workforce housing.
I couldn't agree more. And let's sit down at the table and we'll figure it out.
Without going into all of it, ask your questions, but I am continuing to work with Greta weekly, sometimes more than that. And there are multiple things that I'm tying up from projects. Community land trust work is what you're probably talking about. That's one way to get there, is to build those portfolios of local worker homes. But yeah, I'll continue to do what I can where I can. So.
Thank you, Greta.
Thank you. I'm so grateful, Kiki, for everything you've done for us and the entire community. So
Well, you did miss the deadline today, but you know, hey, I'll call you tomorrow.
thank you so much.
We look forward to your continuing progress reports. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Greta.
We also have a presentation from the Tubbs Hill Foundation Chairman, former Representative George Sather. Welcome, George.
That's a new one. I have not heard that before. Well, good evening, Your Honor, and members of the council. It's a pleasure to be here. And thank you, Council Member Wood, for the invitation. I'm here as a member of the Foundation Board and representing them tonight to speak to you briefly about Tubbs Hill, the foundation, who we are, and what we do. And I would say that this organization goes back to 1981, when a group of the luminaries of that day became concerned about whether the city could afford to and have the resources to manage the hill. And so they joined together and formed the Tubbs Hill Foundation as an asset to the city in doing that. And I can sum up our work pretty briefly by just reading our mission statement, which says, Tubbs Hill Incorporated is a nonprofit association dedicated to the preservation of Tubbs Hill City Park as a unique and natural lakeshore forest typical of North Idaho, while providing for compatible public use. We act as advocates of the park, advise the city administration on issues pertaining to the park, and support volunteer efforts, fundraising, community relations, and other tasks as needed. And I would say that the emphasis is on the preservation of the hill in its natural state, and at the same time allowing for compatible public use. And those two sometimes come into conflict. Generally, when there's a conflict, it involves some kind of commercial interest, and which we always say no to. It's a public place and it's for public use. So we are now in our 43rd year in pursuit of that mission, and we work primarily in close partnership with the Parks Department. which has proven to be a very supportive partner and an excellent relationship over the years. I could list a lot of activities that we do, but I don't want to go through that litany because it's all in our annual report. It includes things like trail maintenance, educational outreach, etc. But I hope that you have had a chance to look at that. I think you have had copies made available. If not, it is on our website, which is an easy one to remember. Even I can do that. It's tubbshill.org. We do appreciate our partnership with the city and with the Parks Department. We're happy to be able to help in the work of keeping Tubbs Hill natural and healthy. Sometimes people question the health of the hill when they look at the forest on the east side in particular. There's a lot of dead trees, a lot of snags. Well, recently we had a sign we made in conjunction with the Audubon Society. It asks the question, what good are dead trees and standing snags? And so it provides a lot of information about the benefits that those things do to the forest ecosystem. So that's an effort to try to meet some of those concerns. We meet monthly, second Thursdays, 10 o'clock at the library right here. All are invited to attend and even to consider maybe joining with us. And finally, we do want to extend an invitation to you and to all of the members in the audience and to those watching on television. We have a town hall meeting coming up on April 20th at 7 o'clock right here. We're going to be presenting a video that we did last year, a tour of the hill, and we'll have information about our activities. We'll have a chance for discussion, talk about issues on the hill, opportunities for volunteering, and so on. And right now, if I can make this work properly, we're going to actually see a bit of that video, and I may need your assistance since it's not where it was before. My technological limitations.
Hey, I need the same help, George.
I'm almost able to manage my cell phone.
Okay.
All right. This was done, and it features Jack Nisbet, the author and naturalist, our city forester, Nick Goodwin, and our board member, Mark Wiedek, who is a retired forester. About 5 minutes.
Hello, I'm Nick Goodwin, the City of Coeur d'Alene Urban Forester with the City of Coeur d'Alene Parks and Recreation Department. I'm standing here today at Tubbs Hill, which is a 165-acre natural area that is a city park and one of our natural areas in Coeur d'Alene. It's managed by the City of Coeur d'Alene in conjunction with the Tubbs Hill Foundation. I'm also with Mark Wiedek, who is with that foundation. He is a forester and has been working on this hill for over 40 years. I'm also with Jack Nisbet, who is a writer and a naturalist who is assisting us today. As I mentioned, this is a city park, one of our natural areas, 165 acres of beautiful natural area here in downtown Coeur d'Alene, right at the heart of downtown Coeur d'Alene. It abuts the lake and is enjoyed by the public on a daily basis for recreation, trail walking, and just enjoying nature. This hill is one of, if not the most treasured pieces of property in Coeur d'Alene. It is rich in history and it's extremely important to our community. And we're here today to walk the hill, enjoy it, and learn a bit with these two gentlemen.
And I'm from Spokane, and I have been hanging around with Mark, learning from him for decades, also because I'm interested in the history of who came here, usually white fur traders, right, meeting tribes. And this place works really well for that because it has this mix of vegetation and forest and views of the lake and views of the geology that just drive us all crazy. So we wanted to start at this place because Mark and I both came at this from a love of trees, and there are beautiful trees right here at the opening of the path. And I have to ask Mark why they're here, how did they survive, and what are they up to? What is their fate over time?
Well, we're on the north side of the hill, the most moist side of the hill, and at the toe of this slope, over time, the soil accumulated. It's called colluvial soil, and in this nice deep soil, we have these large white pine and western larch. These are the biggest trees on the hill, and the rest of the hill, we'll talk about that a little bit more, was subject to various glacial Lake Missoula flood episodes that washed this hill right down to bare rock. And so the soil is thin. It's only had a few thousand years to accumulate. And so we'll see the effects of that. But right here, these are the biggest trees on the whole hill.
And I guess I have to say is David Thompson's one of the guys that Mark and I share. He's a fur trader that came into the Salish-speaking tribal country in 1807, and he immediately saw tribal people building amazing sturgeon-nose canoes out of white pine bark. So we can get excited when we see white pines of this quality, clear and tall and straight.
Well, this is rotted wood. It is loaded with both potassium and phosphorus. The fungi and bacteria that break this down synthesize nitrogen from the air. And so this is the most important natural soil amendment that we have on the hill.
And as you look up the hill here, this is where we're going to be going in, and there's a series of white flowering shrubs that bloom in sequence that set the calendar for everybody, especially if you're Aboriginal people before contact, on how it works. The one we're seeing blooming today all over the place is 9-bark with these hemispherical balls of white flowers that are very pretty, and 9 layers, a bunch of layers that you can peel off the trunk. And then the next one to come on is called Ocean Spray, and it's just now starting to bloom, where it keeps the blooms from last year, and then the pencils from this year are just starting to come on. Here's the pencils of the Ocean Spray coming out. The tribal people call this ironwood because it's very hard wood, and the stems of mature trees work great for digging sticks, specialty hard tools like that. So again, here's the 9-bark, here's the Ocean Spray. They're really distinctive once you get to know them. But at a distance, as you're walking past Tubbs Hill, you go through this sequence, starting with serviceberry and working its way through 6 or 7 beautiful white flowering shrubs that all have their different attributes as we move through the year.
Well, I hope that it's intriguing to you and enticing you to come to our meeting. I presume you're all supporters of Tubbs Hill and friends of Tubbs Hill. I'm looking at friendly faces, and I see yes. So I'm going to leave you with a little gift. It's something you can proudly display on your car, your desk, your front door, or wherever. It's simply a bumper sticker that says Friend of Tubbs Hill. I'll put them over here on the desk. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
George, thank you very much for chairing that foundation, and thank you for sharing the passion that those gentlemen shared with us today and your own passion. It certainly is something that's important to our community as a resource, but also to those visitors to our community. So thank you very much, George. I appreciate your coming tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, can I?
Yes.
George, before he leaves, I just want to recognize I sit as the council liaison to the foundation, and this group of women and men are mostly retired, right, George?
Yes, yeah.
And you just wouldn't believe how much work, physical work, they do out on that hill. They go out and clear the trails, dig new trails, saw the fallen logs. It's amazing. And you're only a little bit older than me, George, and you're all out there all the time, cleaning it up, taking care of it. If you weren't doing that, I think the city would probably have to hire 5 more Nicks to get it taken care
We
of.
acquired about 600 hours of volunteer help this year in doing that.
Wow.
I wanted to point out 2 things. The average tenure of our members is probably around 15 to 18 years, so it's a long-term organization of people. And we have one member who walks the hill almost every day,
Wow.
picking up debris. Recently, she found a cross that had been erected at the top of the hill, and so she notified the Parks Department to deal with it. So it's a very fun organization to be a part of. Thank you.
Thank you, George.
You bet.
Yeah.
Are there any announcements by the council? Seeing none, I would ask you to confirm the appointment of Bill Irving to the Pedestrian and Bicycle Advisory Committee.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion on the motion. All those in favor respond with aye.
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 Those opposed with nay. Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move for approval of the consent calendar as presented, including Resolution 23021.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, will the clerk take the roll, please?
Wood,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller,
Aye.
McEvers,
Yes.
English.
Yes.
We have some people that wish to speak tonight on the public comment. The first one is Chet Gady. Chuck?
Chet Gady, Coeur d'Alene. Good evening, Mayor and Council. When I found out that you had 2030 on the agenda tonight, I wanted to come in here and say thank you. When I first moved to Coeur d'Alene about a decade ago, or a little more than a decade ago, the city was advertising doing this great visioning process to see what the goals and dreams of the citizens of Coeur d'Alene were. So I thought, wow, I'm new in the community. I can go to that meeting and find out what this community is all about. So I went to the meeting, and I'm a little bit of a process junkie because I used to be a mayor. And so I went to the meeting, and at the meeting, they said, we're going to really go out in the community and get a lot of input, and we're going to make two promises. The first promise was the community involvement, and that is important in any community. The second promise was that the document that was going to be created was not going to sit on the shelf and gather dust, that it was going to be an active and alive document. So I was excited about that, and I ended up going to every meeting, and then I ended up getting on the drafting committee to help draft the document. And at those meetings, there was an interesting dynamic because it was basically sponsored by the city of Coeur d'Alene, but we realized quickly from the comments of the audience that the vision for Coeur d'Alene is actually bigger than the city of Coeur d'Alene. In fact, and this sounds really strange, the sheriff came to the Coeur d'Alene envisioning process and was a great contributor. And so he's obviously outside that. And then someone mentioned earlier, the lake is bigger, and the lake was a big deal. So we drafted the document and presented the document to council, and council lived up to the agreement of not letting this document die. The first thing council did was adopt the document as part of your decision-making process for things that came in front of council. You heard tonight, when the Atlas waterfront was going in, 2030 had this vision. They did that not because it was a 2030 document, but because it was adopted by you. The second thing that you helped with was the funding of an organization called CDA 2030 to pursue the goals of the community and this document. 2030 has pursued those goals in relation to the city, I think, in three different ways. And you've heard them all mentioned in an earlier presentation. One is a vendor. The city says, we need a rental survey done. And here's the criteria, and CDA 2030 could go out and do it. We need a partner. If we look at the mayor's statement at the beginning of the comprehensive plan, that was a partnership. And third, as a benefit to the community. As a benefit to the community, we saw the training for people in CPR. So now you've created your own comprehensive plan. And in that comprehensive plan, for the first time, you have goals and action items. That was never part of a comprehensive plan before, and you use CDA 2030 documents. But you notice in your comprehensive plan that you came to the same realization as we did when we were doing 2030, and that the goals of the community are bigger. And in that comprehensive plan that you adopted, you have assigned CDA 2030 as a convening authority to pursue over 50 of the items you want pursued. So I came here tonight to thank you for twice in the decade that I've been here, going through a huge envisioning process to listen to your citizens and to make sure what they said were their goals. And their goals have changed since 2012 and now, because housing wasn't that big a deal then. It was still a big deal. And so you have done these envisioning things twice, and you have ensured that the document didn't die, that the vision of the citizens are still being pursued. So I want to thank you for doing that, and because of that, you make this a nice place to live. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sarah McCracken. Please state your name.
Sarah McCracken in City of Coeur d'Alene. I just want to also say thank you from the Connect Kootenai Board. I'm the current chair, and we have a few board members here today. We've appreciated the partnership over the years. I've been involved in the beginning and on the board for the last couple years. Something Greta didn't share is she was also part of the original group. She forgot to share that piece, and so we brought her back. She did have some familiarity with our process. So I just want to say thank you. I look forward to continued partnership and actually doing the things in the plan, because we spent a lot of years planning, and so now I'm excited to start doing. And I think with our new branding and our new energy that we have a lot of momentum behind that. So thank you.
Thank you. Justin O'Connell.
Mayor and council, we have a crisis. Affordable housing. It was uttered in these hollowed chambers that affordable housing is a myth. The townspeople are on the verge of figuring us out. We have to do damage control. Tell them that affordable housing is a right. Thomas Sowell says, quote, in 1901, housing costs took 23% of the average American's income. And by 2023, it took 33% of an even larger income. Those are excellent returns. The planners are doing great. In California, the proportion of income required for housing has increased even more steeply in a shorter amount of time. Which reminds me, could we please stop using California, Oregon, and DC as examples of cities to emulate in our public meetings? You're making me look bad. But what makes me look good is the city gives Habitat for Humanity the right of first refusal, restricting the supply for everyone else. Great work. Houston doesn't have zones. 10% cheaper housing than the national average. Don't look into it. We're working on that. What if the more nice single-family houses you build, the more nice old single-family houses there are for those with less money? Who cares? Look, a lot of this is out of your hands. 1/3 of the United States is forested. Privately owned forests supply 91% of the wood harvested in the U.S. Federal forests supply a mere 2% of the wood harvested in the United States. Federal forests, just 2% of the wood. Therefore, in order to save the environment, the townspeople have to live in affordable housing. It takes less lumber. Sorry. Admittedly, there are still some things we need to explain away for the comp plan, 2042 to 2062. Like when 19th century writer Frederick Bastiat points out the unseen consequences of government regulation. Or when Thomas Sowell says, quote, the biggest economic fallacy about housing is that affordable housing requires government intervention. Or when Connor Doherty, Wall Street Journal journalist, writes in his book, Golden Gates, Fighting for Housing in America, quote, markets aren't perfect, but they are mostly better than feudalism. I disagree. In the meantime, I have a list of demands for council: cheap groceries, affordable groceries, we'll call them. No more grocery permits for grocers unless they use our prices. We can have the planning department figure those out. Also, maybe hotel stays at the waterfront hotel. I think everyone deserves to stay there once. And also Rolls Royces. I like them personally. That's all for today's consultation. I hope I've precluded the need for any new blue ribbon committees. Thank you.
Robert Knutson.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. I'm Robert Knutson in Coeur d'Alene. I was reading through the agenda packet last night and came across a couple of different elements that I have some questions or concerns about. And I'll preface my comments with a statement that I have no vested interest in high bids, low bids, anything like that. But there are a couple of items in the packet that have to do with accepting and rejecting bids for city services. And the reason that this caught my eye is because one of the recommendations is to accept a chip sealing contract, and the other recommendation is to reject a bid for the lower Blackwell booster station work. Apparently, the lowest bid was close to $2 million. It was expected to be $1.4 million. And I can't find, and I'll admit I haven't done enough research into this, but trying to find any sort of city standards or policies that drive the decisions to accept or reject high or low bids. And the reason that I bring this up is because in the one of the presentations that you'll hear or have read about has to do with a proposal for city staff to do some of the work to potentially send that work package out to bid, hopefully to get a lower cost. And I asked this question, and I know you won't be able to respond to me, but perhaps in the discussion it could come up, what is the trade-off? How much work can the city staff really do? How much money will that save? What kind of work does that take away from existing city services and facilities? The city staff are going to be dedicated to doing that work to bring the cost down. If you work with project management, everybody knows that there's scope, schedule, budget, and quality issues that have to be dealt with. I'm just curious about how this all plays into the overall process and looking out for the interests of the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Suzanne Knudsen?
Good evening. Suzanne Knudsen, 4208 West Appaloosa Road, Indian Meadows, Coeur d'Alene. But tonight, I'm not talking about Indian Meadows. I wanted to say that I appreciate you having the consent calendar on the overhead at the meetings. I am a member of an accessibility committee at the HREI, and one of the things that we're trying to do is to create more accessibility for people with disabilities in our community. And having that on the overhead helps a ton. But I also would like to ask you to please read the consent calendar out loud, because that would help people that want to come to the meetings that are visually impaired. They can't read it. So I've written to Dan Gukin. I asked him if it would please be read each week. He said he would pass it along to the mayor, and now it is on the overhead, but I would still like it to be read out loud because our community does have some accessibility issues, and we need to make all of our open forums available to those people who have disabilities. There are a lot of other things that we're working on in that committee, and we'd love to have your input on that as well. If anybody's interested in working on that with us, I can get back to you with more information. Thank you.
Thank you. Before you go,
Yeah.
What is your connection with this? Is this something connected to health and welfare? Is this just something that you do? Help me understand that better.
I've been a volunteer in our community for different organizations, nonprofits that work with adults with disabilities. And I've known, I'm part of the arts community as well, because we're trying to make arts available to people with disabilities, and also people who may not have access to the arts, maybe lower income or things like that, and or people that just don't know about it or don't have transportation. There's a lot of things that make our community inaccessible, but we have to figure out: are people disabled because they have a medical condition, or are they disabled because they don't make enough money to be able to afford to go to things? Or are people disabled because our community is not accessible to them? Are doors too heavy? Do we not have enough buttons on doors that can open doors for people who can't open the doors themselves? Things like that. So I was invited to participate on the education committee at the Human Rights Institute here in town, and from that we created an accessibility committee as well. And so that committee incorporates just a lot of, right now it's just a lot of discussion. We've only had one meeting so far, and we're going to try to meet on the regular to come up with other things that would help to create more accessibility in our town.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. I don't see Terry. Who's making the presentation on the?
Yep.
He's in the
back.
shadows.
Oh, he is. It's so dark back there. You're a little guy like you, it can hardly find you. Welcome, Terry. Maybe you can answer the question that was posed during the public comment as well.
I intend to. That's actually part of the presentation I was working on and some thoughts I had and some of the feelings I struggle with the same questions he brought up. Just up and going. I thank council for allowing me to come before you this evening to talk about the Blackwell Booster Station bids. As most of you know, the Blackwell Booster Station supplies water to residents on the Blackwell Island across the river. Most of them are outside city limits, so they do not pay taxes to the city for other services. We just do provide them water. That system was constructed by Washington Water Power on the lower portion back in the early 60s and by a private developer up on Fairmont Loop and above that, 70s and 80s. It was owned by several different entities. The city was forced to take it over by court order in 1993 due to a failing system over there so that we could provide services to them. This is the original, or the existing booster station. As you can see, it's undersized. The system was kind of built on a shoestring budget by the private developer at that time. The system does not provide fire flow to Fairmont Loop and anything above that, unfortunately, and that booster station cannot be modified to provide fire flow. We have worked out some workarounds with Kootenai County Fire to help push water up there if in an emergency if we needed it. Most of the time they would probably have to truck it up to the hill. So we had proposed, as you remember from our contract discussions almost a year ago, to build a new booster station on a separate site. We've already invested money in a new transmission main. The existing transmission main from the existing station, half of that is on private property. There is no easement. It's on very steep property, so if it does develop a leak, which it will probably in the next few years, it is a steel pipe. We would have to get in and dig by hand to do repairs. We couldn't do any replacement. We can't get equipment on there, so steep. So we're looking for other options. So we acquired the property here from a developer that wanted to do some, swap some services for property for the transmission main and the booster station itself. So we installed 4 services for the developer, and they sold the property and transferred this property to us. We installed a new 12-inch ductile iron transmission main up the hill with a contractor. So that is in place and ready to go. We've been in process for almost 8 months designing a new booster station to go up there. We were originally giving a budget from the consultant engineer or engineering consultant last budget season of $1.4 million to do the construction. They estimated out the mass excavation, a large retaining wall, the new building. We have pre-purchased a generator so that because of the long lead times to get it here, and some of the other equipment. So we went to bid in March, open bids on March 23rd, and lo and behold, our lowest bid was $1.99 million. Just to give you kind of an example, Hutter well, our newest well, large 4,000 GPM well, cost us $1.6 million. This is half the size, much lower capacity. I was dismayed when the bids were opened. I expected it to be between 1.2 and $1.4 million. So we started talking with the consulting engineer. All of their bids recently have been skyrocketing in prices. There's materials and labor have increased between 20 and 35% in the last few years. But really, they couldn't give us that much of an explanation either. Talked to a couple of the contractors. They said the biggest factor on this was the excavation work and the 13-foot tall retaining wall. They estimated that at being $500,000 to $600,000 alone. So My idea, before I get into this, I'll give you a little bit of information. My idea was to go back and look at what we could do with the property, as we did with Best Hill in 2017. We went in and did the underground piping work, which is work that we do normally for our construction crew. So we went in and excavated, did the piping work on that project. It saved $350,000 alone on the next bid to complete that project. On this one, my idea is to go in and terrace the property. It's very steep, as you saw from the pictures. It's 2-to-1 slope. So I looked at the profiles on that. We also had geotech, looked at the type of soils there. We were expecting a ton of rock. It is mostly sand and clay, surprisingly. So we could go in there, we could excavate that down, terraced it about 3 times with 3 to 4 foot retaining walls, slope from the north and south side. We could raise the booster station location up about 3 to 5 feet, push it back about 20 feet into the property, and I'm estimating we could save between $500,000 and $750,000 on that cost. The cost to us, labor-wise and materials, probably around less than $100,000. Yes, it does take away from other work, but we also have times when we're doing some of those projects, we have a little bit of downtime that we could dedicate to moving some materials here. I do have 4 new crew members that I'd like to get some training on. This is a wonderful occasion to help train them on what we do, what we can do. There are some other options. The other thought is that prices are probably not going to come down, no matter when we do bid this. They may level off. Lead times are still going to be just as long, probably, for a lot of the bigger items. The generator that we pre-ordered, we ordered 8 months ago. It's on a boat coming towards the United States. I don't know from where. Somewhere the CAT has their smaller generators built. We have talked about canceling the order on that, because if it sits for a couple of years, we lose the warranty on it. CAT may be able to do something with that, so we're still working with them. There are some of the materials that for the controls that we pre-ordered. The new booster station would have fire flow sufficient for the hill, so that's one of the things to consider too. So there's kind of some trade-offs in waiting as building it now. We do have $5.75 million in cap fees available as of today, so we do have the funding. I expect this project would take over 1 fiscal year, so we could rebudget if we wanted to. But I had a discussion with the city administrator about return on investment. In the business world, this doesn't make sense. It feeds 88 customers. At their usage for 2022 and at current city rates, it would take between 145 and 150 years to break even on these costs. So, but no matter what we do there, I do not expect to get a return on investment. We will not break even, but we are obligated to provide those customers with the same services that we provide everybody else in the city. So I'm struggling with this decision either way. I'm kind of looking to the council for support on it or ideas. My recommendation, as you can see here, is to reject these bids, take another hard look at the project. I don't want it to go away. I just want to figure out some way that we can do some cost savings in-house or through some different options to alleviate these costs. Just to me, it's just outrageous. So with that, I will stand for council questions.
Woody?
So I have to ask all these crazy questions. So you can't say no.
What's that?
You cannot say no. No, we're not going to do this.
We could, but the existing station is going to grenade sometime. We're going to have to do something sometime.
And that's from a court order that, because you're the utility.
Because we were forced to take over the system, and it is what it is.
Gotcha. No. When you talked about walls, retaining walls, did you look into prefabs? See the parks are using those every once in a while.
We
Is that
looked at that. We
saving-
talked with the geotechs because of the type of soil there. They didn't feel that those were safe. They recommended what they call a soil nail wall, which drives, anchors back into the bank about 13 feet, and then a rebar is set up, and it's kind of a shotcrete wall. Not the most attractive thing that I was not very happy with. So by terracing, we could go to conventional methods.
Okay. And on the long term, you said we traded some land for some hookups.
Yes.
So is that area really, I mean, it's, the only way you're going to get money back is for it to grow. And we have no control over growth other than water.
Right. We have no desire to grow that area unless it were to come into the city, and the citizens have no desire to come into the city.
Right. They don't have sewer also, right?
Right. Yeah, if they were to come into the city, that's another factor that they would have to consider and pay for.
Dan?
Right. Thanks.
And this might be a question for legal. If we were to accept this bid, would we be able to, kind of a hybrid plan of work with the low bid contractor and maybe do some of what you're talking about and shave some, or would that be out of bounds with our bidding process and the other bidders?
If the contractor would be agreeable, we could certainly negotiate less service, but they bid this and could say, no, that's our bid, that's what you have to pay us.
Right. But we could ask without being outside. I guess where I'm coming from is, at some point, we were forced by court order to do this, so, no sense crying over that. The moral of that story is we really, really have to be careful about not taking on parts of the cities that aren't annexed or that don't want to be, but that's a whole different thing. This is where we are. And since we are there, we have the responsibility for life safety. It doesn't matter, frankly, how many years, we don't even try to make it pencil. If we had a bad incident, we just couldn't live with that. So I guess I would be very reluctant to reject it. I would rather see us, go ahead, and the prices aren't going to probably get cheaper, but try to negotiate with him and let you do some training, hopefully shave something off of there, but it's not going to get cheaper, and we should, I think we should keep going, but that's where I'm at.
Well, I think we do have a limited amount of time. We have to accept or reject the bid.
Yes.
And we're going to run into some difficulties if we don't do something tonight, one way or the other.
Right.
Actually,
and if we accept it tonight, we can't later reject it if the contractor refuses to negotiate.
Right, we have to, this is what we'd bite off, but we can hope for better, but, okay.
I think, though, that while I appreciate your thoughts, I think it's cleaner, Council, to reject the bid. There's still nothing preventing Terry's department from talking to the contractors and seeing what we can do to come back with a better price, but we get tied into a real problem with accepting any of those bids at this point. So I really think it's cleaner. I remember Jim Markley and I 8 years ago trying to come up with ways to peddle this to a developer, and it's kind of an albatross around our neck, but it's not going away. But I know Terry is one of the premier water purveyor directors in the Northwest, and if he can't figure it out, then I think we need to take his advice and start over. So.
And how quickly could we turn another bid cycle around?
It depends on what we decide to do. If we decide to do some of the work ourselves, we're going to have a little bit of a waiting period to do that. We could sit down with the engineering consultant, go over what we're looking at. We could probably turn something back around. Even by the time they order materials for this type of structure, we're going to be looking 5 to 8 months out before they even begin construction anyway.
Oh, so we're outside of this budget year then, probably.
Woody?
So Mayor, just one more question. I was just thinking about the structure that Upper Fernan Hill, when we took over that water system up on the bluff up there. I think we did something where all those people had to pay like a cap fee or something over a period of time to help carry that. Does that apply in this? Have you looked into that?
I have considered it. You're talking about Armstrong Park where we charged a surcharge.
Correct.
To each of the services, a monthly surcharge. I think it was like around $26 a month.
Yeah.
And they paid the system back for the new booster station and some corrections to the system up there. That is something we could consider, certainly. We can't do an LID or anything like that out there, so by state.
Just looking for some income for you to help
Yeah.
pay back it over time. Maybe we
Right.
don't get down to 100 years.
Yeah.
Save 50 years. All right. I love that you figure out these things, Terry. I think it's just amazing, real challenges, and I appreciate all your thought. And with that,
Go.
I would like to move for the, approve the Resolution 23 of rejecting all bids and replacement of Lower Blackwell Booster Station.
Second.
Yeah, motion and second to reject Resolution 22-022. Further discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk take the roll, please? Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
Evans?
Yes.
Miller? Aye. McEvers?
Yes.
English?
No,
Wood?
Yes.
Motion carries. Good evening, Todd.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. So I come tonight to talk about the upcoming summer season. Streets and Engineering is really excited this year. We have a lot of projects. We intend on making a lot of great corrections to some of our road surface. Something that we start about December is planning chip seal. We aim to get a bid out late February, sometime mid-March to get better pricing. So chip seal, it's a great use of funds to add, 5 to 10 years of life expectancy to a road surface. So we evaluate different parts of the city to see which area we want to look at. Normally the age of the road. Some of the roads fail quicker than others. That's due to traffic or even poor design sometimes. To answer one of the questions earlier, and this picture is a good picture, you can see the black lines where the chip seal hasn't gone down. That is primarily what city staff does for a chip seal project to prep for the work for the contractor. That is crack sealing. We have a machine that we go out and we try and fill all the cracks. It's best for us to do it in mid-spring, almost early summer, while the cracks are open and exposed in the cold weather. We like to fill them with the crack seal and let it cure and be ready for the contractor to show up and start the chip seal. This is just another picture, kind of shows that. You can see more of the lines there. That is what we will be spending, probably early May we will start on that, depending on weather. End of April we will start those preparations. So in the past, since 2016, we have done about 80 lane miles of chip seal in the city of Coeur d'Alene. This is kind of a map that just kind of shows the areas of town. We jump around, we try not to focus on one area. We want to spread it out throughout the city. This dark green area down here, Coeur d'Alene Lake Drive, that is a project we did with the Highway District, with Eastside Highway District. We partnered with them. It was a great project for us, and so between their staff in the city of Coeur d'Alene, we were able to do that for, it was a great cost savings to us. It allowed us to use money for other projects. We did a lot of work last year on Ramsey Road with inlays, with city staff. That was some much needed repairs. This year, this is a map, one of the exhibits that was in the bid package. I'll just go through the areas that we're doing. We're going to do Best Avenue, 4th to 15th Street. That section of road could definitely use the coating there. When we do that, you know, new crosswalks go in, new striping, and then the road will be sealed up hopefully for another 10 years. Main roads in Hawks Nest and the landings, Hanley Avenue, Carrington, Johns Hawk, Talon, Newbrook, and Princeton Lane. Corsellis Parkway, we're going to do from Prairie Avenue to Hanley. Hanley Avenue, we're going to do Corsellis to Atlas Road. Kathleen, last year we did a project between Highway 95 and Government Way. We would like to seal that little section up. That is the ideal time for us to do a chip seal. So right now we do chip seals more at the end of our road's life. The best practice would be for us to start doing it a year or two after we put fresh pavement down. That helps to seal it, and that's going to make the surface last the longest. So we feel this is the opportunity for us to seal that project up so that it lasts as long as it was intended. Some tips for drivers. Chip seal is a messy process. It's multi-stages. We're normally in and out pretty quick, but it does create some inconveniences. We ask people to follow traffic control devices. Pay attention to the closures. A lot of times to get it done quickly, we push all the traffic to the wrong side of the road so we can do half the road. So it's always marked well. There's flaggers out there, but we just ask the public to pay attention to the signs and the information out there. Sometimes we have to turn the traffic signals off because we displace the traffic. Just a reminder that a black stoplight is a four-way stop by Idaho law. So we ask you to pay attention if the light's not working and there's not a flagger there, that you treat it as a stop. Try not to drive through the fresh oil. It makes a mess of cars. You know, we will ask you to have a reduced speed. You need to be prepared for rock chips, you know, until the final sweeping. So pay attention to the reduced speeds and when you're driving through the construction zone to avoid damage to your car. Increase following distance. This helps with windshield damage. Motorcycles and bicycles need to be careful. It's not recommended for you to go through the fresh oil before the rock is there. And then expect up to 2 weeks before striping goes down. It has to cure, and then we have to put a fog seal down, so we can't put the striping down immediately. It has to sit for 2 weeks. This year, staff recommends that we award our 23 chip seal contract to Poe Asphalt for $639,000. At this price, we anticipated the price actually to come in quite a bit higher this year for our the amount of work that we had in the area that we were going to do. So with the budget that we have Councilmember Gookin asked at a meeting last week, you know, pointed out that our budget for this was set at $1.5 million this year. So we are excited with the extra funds that we will be able to do some inlay and overlay asphalt repairs with a contractor in front of some of this work. So we're going to be able to do a lot more lane miles than what we first anticipated. So with that, I would take any questions.
Questions? Woody?
Just a couple. I love talking streets with Todd. I drive around a lot, so I'm always asking him things, and I learn stuff. Can you do a little explanation on why our streets take such a beating? You know, are we special or are we not?
Well, I would say we're definitely special.
Special,
This is
okay.
a great place to live, but.
Thank you.
So there's several factors. Obviously, we have a lot of growth here right now. The traffic, these roads weren't designed for the amount of traffic that we have currently. Another problem we have is the last month, we've had a lot of freezing temperatures at night, and then it warms up during the day. So there's frost in the ground, and the ground swells, and then it shrinks, it swells, and so then the asphalt starts to crack. We also have drainage problems when this happens, because when we design the road for the water to flow this direction and then it's swelled up, water sits out on the road and then it saturates the ground and causes problems. Some of it, I'm not going to lie, we do find that sometimes that the road could have been built better. There's areas that maybe the mat's not as thick as it should have been. The soil isn't quite what it was supposed to be. So we need to do a better job paying attention to that. But primarily, I would say it's the traffic. We have construction traffic on our roads 12 months out of the year. And so these developments weren't designed to have big trucks driving on them in freezing cold temperatures. So.
Thank you.
Other questions? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Couple of questions, Todd. Maybe you could go back to the streets that you have listed.
Okay.
Because the first thing that caught my eye is some of these are fairly new subdivisions compared to ones that I'm very familiar with. Let's just talk about the Coeur d'Alene Golf Course area, Indian Meadows. If you drive Evergreen, it's a disaster. So how do you prioritize? Because again, these seem like fairly new areas. And how do we prioritize and make sure some of these older subdivisions are tended to?
That's a great question. We spend a lot of time, we do have a rating system that we use, and we have our Public Works team that goes out and we rate the roads. And so there's graphs that we use, and it actually will help us determine on a scale which roads need more attention than others. You're correct. Hawks Nest, the landings, depending on what phase that was built, they're anywhere from 14 to 19 years old, those roads. And fairways, those roads are much older than that. We build roads a little different now. Yes, there's a lot of alligatoring in the fairways, we would notice. I'll point out Newbrook Drive, for instance, a much newer road. We actually are going to have to repave Newbrook from Atlas heading west because it's sinking, there's ruts, and there's the alligatoring. So that road it kind of jumped to the top of the list. It's much newer, but we can't chip seal it in its current condition. Whereas like in your neighborhood, the roads, yes, they have alligating, but they're still water drains. They're still working properly. So
I appreciate that explanation. I'm certain I will get asked
right.
how we're prioritized. The other issue is on the budget for this year, and this is actually more directed at Troy. Troy's awake over there. Troy, I don't have the budget in front of me, so I didn't recall the total amount that we set aside. Todd mentioned it. I just want to be clear that doesn't include the money from the URD that we're still going to discuss. I'm all for this project, but I just want to be clear that
Correct. You appropriated these dollars at the beginning of the fiscal year, $1,500,000. And the other dollars that came in after that are in your fund balance.
Right. And we may decide to use it on streets, but we're going to have that discussion. Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? Yes, Dan.
You mentioned with Kathleen, there between 95 and Government Way, the new section did. Is there, and probably not anything, but I'll ask, it's still a very awkward entrance if you're coming eastbound on Kathleen, go through 95, you're going to go into Super 1. And, you know, you've got some things trying to tell people don't go in that first driveway, but if you go down a little bit further, people kind of coming at you, and it's like, well, I want to get out of the way. So is there anything that can be done, maybe not with this, or if there's extra money to reconfigure any of that, or is that just the best it is?
So we've visited about that. That's a tricky location because
Yeah.
some of that is still ITD right away.
Oh.
So what we do, we have to work with ITD. When they did their project with the Fast Lane grant, you know, they redid some of that. They came back to actually that approach you're talking about, added a right turn lane. They had decided at that time not to put a center island in there. We did, with the new project, put what we refer to as a double yellow line. By law, that's like a piece of concrete. You're not supposed to make a turn across that. We have put additional signage. However, old habits die hard. Everybody's always turned in that way. There is a turn pocket at the second approach. That's the right driveway to go into. We have talked about putting delineators up. They're just problematic in the winter if you don't put them in concrete because they attach with a glue, and when you plow, they normally pop out, and so it's just a lot of high maintenance. But we are looking at things. We've added some additional signage in the last couple weeks, but I would agree it still is a problem.
Okay. Well, other people who go to Super One might, at least it's on our radar.
Yes.
Thanks.
I find that's a challenge, but I also find if I'm just a little more patient and I go down to the actual street intersection,
that too.
I can usually safely make a left-hand turn from there. So, but yeah, that is a tough. The part of the problem is when Super One landed there, there wasn't nearly the traffic on 95 or on any of the other streets that surround that as there is now. So it's kind of a challenge. I hope the council will approve this. I think one of the things that we need to recognize is that the city of Coeur d'Alene is behind on streets. When you talk about infrastructure, sewer and water is real easy because you collect a fee for that. And we all pay a fee based upon our usage. But with streets, it's purely tax-based. And it doesn't matter how much someone uses it or doesn't, but you can't take a fee based upon the use. So it's a bit more of a challenge, and it's a very expensive piece of infrastructure to take care of. But I know with your predecessor and now with Todd, we decided that we would start making more of an effort to, while streets were still in good shape, excuse me, to seal them and put more money into that. But for some streets, they just are beyond that, and at some point, we just have to completely grind them down or at least put an overlay over them. So I appreciate those efforts. Further questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 23-023, awarding a contract to Poe Asphalt and Paving Incorporated for the 2023 chip seal project in the amount of $639,000.
Second.
We have motion and second. Discussion on the motion. Will the clerk take the roll, please?
Miller. Aye. McEvers.
Oh, yeah.
English.
Yes.
Wood.
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
And lastly, Ted Lancy with our building department wants to file a lien.
So rare to see him up here, isn't it?
Welcome, Ted.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. All right, yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council, for your time this afternoon. We're bringing forward as a project we've been working on for the last, approximately 3 years. This building was first brought forward by code enforcement back around 2020. When we heard about it, it was, we had transients camping in the backyard. And it was first brought forward with the, a couple of things we had going here. One of them was the transients had made the encampment in the back. The other was the portions of the building started collapsing. We have a section of chimney that was falling into the neighboring daycare, and this was due to several of the windstorms that we had going on. The building itself had been occupied up until about 2020 when the owner had fallen ill and was moved to a nursing home. And so since then, this seemed to be an attraction for people to get into the backyard, enter the building. About 2021, in April of 21, we had more reports of people going inside the building. Windows were broken out. We worked with our code enforcement, and we worked with the owner's sister, who has power of attorney, to board up the building and secure it, just so we didn't have people going inside. She did hire a contractor that did remove the chimney, so that portion of the chimney up here was removed. Several of the shingles had fallen into the yard as well. Those were partially removed, and it was covered with a tarp, so it was actually secured. This is just a view from the street. It shows how close the building is to the property line. And next door, we have a daycare. And so anything that fell off the roof would fall right into that daycare. And here's another picture from the backyard. And this is the area where the transients would move into and enter through the building. We, again, in January of this year, we had more people staying inside the building. More shingles were falling off into the neighboring daycare. The tarp that was covering the roof had fallen and had come loose. And so in February 3rd of this year, we chose to file the abatement of dangerous buildings. Once it hits the abatement, we do file a notice with the owner. We give them 30 days to appeal the notice. We actually posted the building, and we sent a copy to the owner's sister as well. Fortunately for us, the owner's sister was really willing to work with us and make sure this problem went away. Once the time to file the appeal was over, she gave us approval to move forward with removing the building. And on March 13th of 23, the building was removed. Now, typically, when it comes to the abatements, we work with the owners, and it's their responsibility to remove the buildings. It's not so much on the city to foot the bill to remove it. In this particular case, the owner didn't have money. The sister who had power of attorney also didn't have funds for the building. And so you're looking at a cost probably roughly $15,000 to $20,000 to repair a roof like that. And so it just wasn't in their budget. The city stepped in, and this actually came out of city funds to remove this building. Say the last one we did at the city's cost was roughly 20 years ago. The decision point for council tonight is approval to file a lien against the property in the amount of $16,500. This is the total balance for the cost of the remediation of the building. And removal, this was to cap the sewer, and it also includes a $100 abatement filing on it. So I did take this to General Services last week, and council did ask for examples of other abatements that we've done. And so I threw a couple other examples in here. This one we had actually worked on for a number of years. Some of you may recognize it. It was located on 3rd Street. The building department was first brought into this project because of a call from the police department. And once we gained access inside the home, we probably could have wrote the book of what not to do on this building. As you can see, There's several different things that can fall under the abatement filing. One is this interesting chimney that was put on the side of the building. It was connected to an unpermitted stove that was inside the building. And as you can see, there's plenty of combustible materials, improper ventilation, you name it. This was pretty much a fire waiting to happen. Other things that fall under abatement code is sanitation. This is definitely not the way to plumb. And so we have open pipes that we're leaking sewer gas inside the building. And so this one we did file abatement on, and this was removed in 2021. This was a fire that happened in, let's see, this was 2021, this one took place. This was actually, falls under a condition where we could abate. We worked with the owners. Since this was a fire that was covered by the insurance, the owners moved pretty quickly, and the building was removed. So this one was brought to our attention. It's a little tough to see with the angle of the photos, but the reason this one had an abatement was because of a foundation that was failing. Part of the foundation was wood, part of it was concrete, and a good portion of it in the back was starting to settle. There was a lot of rot in the lower portion of it, and if we had a little better angle, you could see that this wall was out of plumb, roughly about 16 inches in the center. And inside the building, there was a lot of cracking, a lot of areas where the truss connects to the wall was separating, and it would not have likely made it through a good winter. This building was demolished July of '22, and so it fortunately didn't see a heavy winter. This could have been pretty bad. Again, we have a tree-damaged building. This was one of the windstorms that took a tree out across the building and went into the neighboring yard. This one was just damaged beyond repair. And so we worked with the building owner and managed to get this one removed. So this one is a good example of poor compacted soil and improper drainage system in the building. This one's located on a hillside, and we're currently working with the owners on it to get this repaired. They have quite a chore ahead of them just because of the soil type that's up on the hill. It'll take some soil remediation, quite a bit of support on that foundation. They do intend to raise the building up and try to build a retaining wall to help support the structure. But this building currently has settled about a foot on the steepest side of the hill. So we just wanted to put a few of those in front of you to let you know what the building department's been up to this last year. The main point of the presentation today is filing a lien against 113 East Indiana. And
questions?
Presentation.
Ted, just a quick one. When you run across buildings that are like that newer one that's sliding, is there responsibility to anybody who built it or who compacted the dirt, or is that long in the past?
You know, the contractor on this one is no longer in business. And so, yeah, it should fall to the owner. It tends to be a legal matter between the owner and the builder at that point. The home was built in 1995. And so over the course of time, the home had some settlement. The owner, I want to say it's approximately 5 or 6 years ago, the owner tried to reinforce the building by putting up helical piles. It's a piling system that's bored into the ground, and it's fastened to help keep the structure up. Unfortunately, because of the nature of the soil up there, it keeps moving. They do have water that's introduced under the building, and so even the helical piles just didn't stand up to it, and the hillside's just pushing downward. So.
I guess I always thought you guys were the rule keepers, come in, do this, do that, red tag, you got to fix this. There's much more to it, isn't there,
Yeah.
Is this the good stuff? I mean, when you can save something from falling down or getting rid of it so it's not a safety hazard, I don't think of what is good in the building department, other than people doing things right.
Yeah. Well, it's good when we don't hear about the problems. That means we did our job. We did it right. So, our approach for hillside construction is a lot different than it was back in the 90s. We do spend more time on soil analysis. We spend more time on compaction and drainage systems. And so you'll not likely see a problem like this.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Dan.
Well, just, sounds like filing that lien makes sense. I don't know, if the property is probably long since paid off or something, but as far as just kind of a equivalency, in the county assistance program, when people get help with their medical bills and things, and they could really run up a whole lot more money than this, and a lien is filed on there so that, try to recover something so that the public doesn't. So I think this is, fair and appropriate.
Is that a motion?
And I
Make
would
a
so
motion?
move. Okay, I would move to approve the filing of the lien against the property in the amount of $16,500 to recoup the cost of the city taxpayers upon the sale of the property.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 23-024, authorizing the filing of the lien. Further discussion? Hearing none, will the clerk take the roll, please?
McEvers,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Wood,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller.
Aye.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Discussion on the motion. All those in favor respond with aye.
Aye.
Opposed with nay. Motion carries.
Thank you.